And Elvis wanted to be here. He wanted to come to Europe. He wanted to go to Japan. He wanted to travel the world and see his fans. And I said, honey, why aren't we going to Europe? Why can't you go to Europe and perform? You have so many fans there. And he said, I can't do it. The colonel tells me that there's not enough security, and I'll get mobbed. I'll probably get killed over there because he can't control the security. And so that was the colonel's excuse to Elvis why he didn't travel to Europe, because he was afraid he couldn't control the crowds. And Elvis just, he was very loyal, so he just let the colonel, kind of control the career, and Elvis controlled his own personal life. That's why we didn't see the colonel a lot, because he was not part of our personal lives, but he definitely, was in control of Elvis's career.
So this is a question I've always had. Why couldn't he be stronger to stand up to him? Or was he, you mentioned the loyalty, did he just think that the colonel absolutely knew best and so he backed down? Or was there ever a point where he just said, damn it, it's my life, I'm going to find another way to achieve my goals?
Yeah, he fired him one time. We were in Las Vegas, and he just got very upset with the colonel and just went on one of his little, hell-bent tirades where he was screaming and throwing things, and I'm gonna fire that SOB, and he was like yelling and screaming, and he fired him, but then he hired him right back. So, I think he tried to stand up to Colonel Parker, but there was really this streak of loyalty that was just so ingrained in Elvis that he knew that the colonel had found him early on and built his career, and he, even if it was to his detriment later on and to the detriment of his career, going forward, he still had such a sense of loyalty that he would stand. It was almost like a father figure, but one that was like a Svengali, one that didn't allow you to speak your own mind, like a domineering father kind of thing.
Yes.
So he had that kind of respect for the colonel.
Of course, the colonel would encourage that kind of loyalty and remind him, if not directly through Vernon, what all he'd done for him. Yes. Your relationship with Lisa Marie is very touching, and tell us a little bit more about it. And do you keep in touch with her?
We did for a long time, and in recent years we have not, and I know she's gone through some struggles, and maybe it's because of that, but we were very close. When I lived with Elvis, I adored Lisa Marie, and she, we really had a very close relationship, and I would have little clothes made for her at Susie Cream Cheese, where I bought a lot of my clothes. We just had fun. She would come to us at Graceland every Easter and every Christmas. We had her, and then on spring break, and also during the summer. So we spent a good deal of time with Lisa, and she would come to Vegas. And then either my brother Sam, in the later years when Sam was working with Elvis, Sam or one of the bodyguards, would go pick her up and bring her back and forth. So that's why we didn't have very much contact with Priscilla either. It would be one of the bodyguards that would bring Lisa back and forth. But we had a really close relationship, and then we lost touch when Elvis and I broke up. It's not like, we were, like I had any right. I was not her parent, so I didn't have any right to call and say, hey, I'd like to take her to the movies or to Disneyland. So I just had to take a big step back, but it was painful, to not see her for a long time. Then I flew back with her from Memphis one time, just kind of accidentally. She was about 13, and I got to preach to her a little bit because she was telling me about some party she had gone to, and she drank alcohol, and I said, you're 13, you don't need to be doing that. Your family has a predilection toward alcoholism. I was like, telling her, trying to steer her in the right direction. And so I had that contact, and then I saw her later at a U2 concert, and we reconnected and we exchanged numbers, and I went to her house a few times. She brought Nicolas Cage to my house when she was engaged to him and wanted to know what I thought about Nicolas Cage. I met Michael Jackson with her, and so we stayed in touch, and we stayed really close, and she would come to my birthday parties, and I went to her house at Christmas and that kind of thing. But then we just kind of drifted, and I don't know what to attribute it to, but we just drifted apart, and so we're not in touch now. But I love her, and I wish her well, and I hope she's in a good place now.
She does. I'd like to know that too. You're in the new Elvis documentary, The King. And the part I liked, especially, it's one of the most memorable scenes. Have you seen this documentary? Is it played over here yet? The King?
Is that BBC? What is that?
No, it's in theaters.
Oh, I haven't seen that,
Okay.
no.
You're in this, what I remember the most is you asked Elvis at one point, do you think you have a flaw? Tell us that story.
Yeah, you know, when you live with someone and you share your thoughts and your feelings, you know, we have lots of lengthy discussions. So when I were philosophizing, and I said, what do you think your greatest flaw is? And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, if I'm perfectly honest, I think probably my greatest flaw is that I'm a little self-destructive, but I'll only admit that once. I'm not going to admit that again. So, but I think I am self-destructive. And, you know, that came back to haunt me later because I thought, yeah, at least he, somewhere in the deepest recesses of his consciousness, he really did recognize that he was self-destructive. But, you know, I think, you know, what can you do about it unless you have the kind of tools and the help that wasn't available to him then.
But why do you think he was? Why?
I think it was probably partially genetic, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
You know, I think that we all have predispositions towards certain behaviors, towards certain personality traits, toward certain weaknesses, whether it's health or, you know, bad habits. So I think we all have predispositions, predilections toward certain behaviors. And in his family history, you know, his family on both sides, the Smiths and the Presleys, you know, there was a lot of alcoholism, there was a lot of drug abuse, and I think that it just probably ran through the genetic code. And I think sometimes, you know, that's why it's important to sometimes to know your family history, because then you know what to safeguard against. So I think that was probably part of it, and he just kind of fell into that pattern that a lot of his family fell into.
You know, I've toured Graceland a number of times, but I think until I read your book, I wasn't quite aware of all the wonderful designs that you brought to that home. In the jungle room, and in the basement rooms, the stained glass peacocks in the living area, at the front door, the stained glass climbing roses on either side of the door. I didn't know she was responsible for that. And the monogram, that P, I remember seeing it the last time I was there. You designed the TCB and the lightning bolt, zinging through the clouds on the back wall downstairs. And wanted mirrors on the ceiling to make that room appear higher and more open.
It's a basement room, so I wanted it to lift a little.
And you're the one who bought the cute ceramic monkeys.
Yeah. What's cuter than a little ceramic monkey?
There's one in Hendricks Museum. Is that part of the ones you bought?
Oh, there's one here? I didn't even see it yet. I haven't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? I still have one at my house, too, a little ceramic monkey, and some of the little brass figures. Yeah, it's funny because when Elvis just had this inclination one day, he said, honey, I think I need to redecorate Graceland. I think I'm ready for a change. It's okay, I'll help you. So, as you mentioned, you know, I designed the peacocks, and going into the music room, for those of you who have been to Graceland, you've seen the stained glass peacocks and the climbing roses, the P on above the front door, and it's been changed. The living area and the dining area went back to its original design after Elvis passed away, and it's kind of a shame because it really did, when he designed it, because I just kind of adhered to his taste and what he wanted to do. It wouldn't have been my taste because, quite frankly, the living room and the dining room did look a little bit like a bordello. But it was his taste. He was a little over the top and a little garish, and our bedroom, which was not redecorated, was all black and gold and padded doors, and you know, it was a little garish. But that was his taste, you know, with the way he dressed, with the high collars and the capes and the satin inserts, and you know, that was him. So it's kind of a shame that that was changed back to the original decor. But the jungle room, you know, we didn't call it the jungle room, that was our TV room, just the hang room. When he felt like going downstairs and hanging out with the guys, we'd go down there. But he said, we went to Pier 1 Imports one time and we bought these big fake fur chairs, and he wanted to have green carpet going up the wall to look like moss that was growing in the jungle. And I said, are you sure about that? You really want that green carpet to go up the wall, but that's the way he wanted it. So, you know, I did it like he wanted to do it, and it's become such an iconic room, the Jungle Room. I mean, even Mark Cohen wrote the song Walking in Memphis, the king waiting for the pretty little thing down in the Jungle Room. I guess I was the pretty little thing.
I think so, right?
That was a long time ago.
Now, a very beautiful thing, right? Very beautiful. So how have you processed your time with him? Here we are, 41 years after his death. Hard, so difficult to believe it's been 41 years for those of us who were around in 1977. And your life has been so extraordinary in every way. I mean, Elvis Presley's only one small part of this extraordinary life.
First third of the book.
Right, first third of the book. But when you're able to kind of, you know, the hustle and bustle of the day is over and your head hits the pillow and you're fine, you've said your prayers and you're ready to drift off, do you ever think, oh my God, my life. How do you process your years with him, and why do you think God brought you together?
That's funny, because Elvis used to say to me back in the day, he would say, when we would sit and philosophize and talk about our relationship and, you know, future and having children and that kind of thing, which we did talk about, he would say, honey, do you ever wonder why God brought you to this point, why God put you with me? Out of all the women in the world, you know, God put you here with me. And of course, that was pretty trippy. I said, yeah, I do sometimes think of that. And he said, I think there's a reason for everything. And we even talked about then, those years, he said, maybe one day you'll write a book and you'll be able to speak about who I really was, who I really have been as a person. And I thought that was pretty staggering, you know, that he would have that kind of insight and that kind of trust in me too, to really truly know him as a living, breathing human entity, a human being, not just Elvis Presley on a marquee. You know, I got to see his frailty, you know, his human weakness, his strength. I got to see every aspect of him. So I thought it was pretty wonderful that he trusted me to maybe represent who he was in some way. And you know, he and I both shared a belief that we believe in life, you know, and I believe that life unfolds as it's meant to, and that there is divine providence. I do believe that there is something unseen and wonderful that works and, you know, permeates all being, and that brings us all together for different purposes. And he and I shared that belief. So, you know, I didn't think it was by chance, for sure. And yes, I do know how crazy my life has been. And when I was writing this memoir, I would have to stop sometimes and think, wow, this is just crazy. You know, you couldn't make this up. You couldn't make up the fact that I lived with the king of rock and roll, the greatest icon, the greatest entertainer ever to live, the most famous person ever to live, and left him for a normal life to marry the world's greatest athlete, who became a woman. That wasn't normal. And so, people ask me now, I still have people ask me, well, did you have any idea that Bruce Jenner would you? This man was like all muscles and hair and, you know, he was the world's greatest athlete. There was not a clue that he had any feminine attribute at all. So no, I didn't have a clue until I had 2 baby boys with him. Brody was 18 months old and Brandon was almost 3. And this impossibly masculine person, who, by the way, Elvis was well aware of. There's a passage in my book where we talk about that. Elvis and I are watching the '76 Olympics, and we're watching this astonishing American, you know, run around the track and his muscles flexed and, you know, good-looking all-American guy. And Elvis said, turned to me, we're sitting in bed watching it, and we've been watching this Bruce Jenner dominate the decathlon and on his way to becoming the world's greatest athlete. And Elvis turned to me and said, now you know I'm not gay. I said, yeah, I know that. I said, but that's one good-looking guy, isn't he? He's handsome. And I said, he sure is. You know, we had a little exchange about that and, you know, silliness. But so he was well aware of how good-looking Bruce Jenner was. So for something like that to happen, you know, you just have to look up and go, okay, because that was some kind of joke.
What would Elvis say about Caitlin?
Oh, I think he would probably commiserate with me and how, you know, it was, you know, we can kind of joke about it now a little bit in a very loving way and understanding way, because I do believe, like I said, we all have our journey, and out of respect to Bruce, aka Caitlin, you know, I don't want to make light of it because it was certainly a horrible struggle for Bruce Jenner. I can't imagine, you know, having to go through life feeling disenfranchised in your own body, to not, at least, you know, I've always been happy being a woman. I didn't have to struggle with that. So my greater empathy had to go to him. So I just can't imagine, you know, going through that. But I think Elvis would have been, you know, at first shocked like I was. I felt like my world had fallen apart. But I think he would probably take the position that I did, that, you know, this is another human being that has really struggled and more than achieved everything that a man could. In fact, I've said that to Caitlin since then. I said, you know, you really kicked manhood's ass. You are the world's greatest athlete. Now let's just see if you can be a good human being, you know, and just try to be a better parent and try to be a better human being. So it's a strange thing, you know. I don't discount anyone's reaction to it, because for me it was shocking. It disrupted my world. It disrupted my future. I wanted to be married forever and to raise our kids together. And I had to make another choice again in life, to say, I wish you well. I waived child support. I got no child support, got no alimony. I just said, God bless you. In fact, he even said, Bruce said then, I think I'll probably go to Denmark and have the sex reassignment. So that was the first time, that was my Denmark connection in the moment. But you know, you have to have a lot of empathy for people, and you don't have to understand a phenomenon like that to just be kind about it and be, you know, and wish people well, because certainly it was a horrible struggle for him.
We have about 5 minutes before I want to open the questioning up for everybody, but we can't leave this conversation without talking about the way this woman has matured into one of the world's finest songwriters. And was writing love poems, of course, with Elvis, and he offered to have music put to them, and she kind of went, oh no, and kind of shrugged it off. And then, you know, here we are a few years later, Academy Award and Grammy nominations, wrote the huge Whitney Houston smash from The Bodyguard, I Have Nothing, which we heard in the theater today, actually. And the promo for the Whitney show. I mean, thank you. I have to think about Elvis maybe like lying in bed with you, sitting in a chair next to you, and turning to you and learning of all this and going, damn, girl. Yeah. What do you think he would say to you about the way you've grown and evolved and conducted your life and career?
You know, thankfully, I believe he would be proud. I think that Elvis would be grateful that I have tried with all my might to maintain a dignity about him and a respect toward him and a continuing love and adulation, you know, toward him. I think he would appreciate that I have never said disparaging things about him, nor would I ever. The truth is not, you know, a disparaging thing. It's just the truth. So, and I was not the one to ever come out and say, well, he had a drug problem. You know, I waited until all the dust settled and other people had revealed that. And then I just wanted to put some kindness toward it, you know. I think he would be proud. I think he would be really fascinated with some of the people that I've worked with, including Barbra Streisand. Barbara's recorded several songs of mine, and Whitney Houston he would have loved. And so I think he would have liked, you know, the musical connection. And he has really inspired me in so many ways. I wrote Josh Groban's first hit called To Where You Are. If you all know Josh Groban, you know who that is? So his first hit was To Where You Are, and I Richard Marx wrote the music and I did the lyric, and it was really inspired about those who have passed on and left us, but what they leave us with in our hearts and how we remember them. And I thought of Elvis when I wrote the lyric, and I called Richard. He had sent me the melody. It was da 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 da. That's the chorus, and I said, Richard, this may sound very bizarre to you. You may want a love song, but I'm thinking about writing this about someone who's passed on, like Elvis, and like my mom and your dad. And he said, go for it. So the chorus is, fly me up to where you are, beyond each distant star. I wish upon tonight to see you smile, if only for a while, to know you're there, a breath away's not far to where you are. So it's like one heartbeat away, one breath away. You feel so much more connected to someone who has passed on. And he was my inspiration. He's still my inspiration very much today.
Wow. I personally want to thank you for allowing me to interview you today about your book and about your life, which has just been so extraordinary.
I'm honored. I'm honored to have you.
Thank you so very much. But I've hogged you for 40 minutes now, 50 minutes now, so it's time to let some other people ask some questions. Who's first? Yes.
What was your response when they found out that Colonel Parker was from the end?
Well, I wasn't really surprised, to be honest. You heard the question, right? That what was my response? That when I found out that Colonel Parker was not really Colonel Parker, but yeah, from the Netherlands, right? But you know, we knew we knew there was a little shady area there. But the irony is, I think Colonel Parker thought that he wasn't able to leave the country, which is, I think, the real reason why he didn't set up tours internationally for Elvis, because he knew he couldn't leave the country, or he thought he couldn't. But my understanding in later years is that he did serve in the military, which gives you the ability to do that. So I think he just didn't know. He limited himself and Elvis.
No, actually.
Well, you know better than
I do know this because I had to research it.
Yeah.
We took foreigners in the U.S. Army, but they had to pledge that they would become naturalized. But he became AWOL before that happened. So when he got in trouble with the estate, when the state of Tennessee ordered the estate to go after him for fiduciary overreaching, and he kind of chased them all around the country, and he finally ended up in federal court in New York. And he said, well, guess what? In his legal papers, he said, guess what? You can't sue me because I'm literally a man without a country. That he told Variety that too. So
wow.
You can't even, you can't deport me because I gave up my Dutch citizenship automatically when I joined the U.S. Army. So
the plot thickens. I have to read your book. You wrote a book that was very well researched about Colonel Parker, so she would know better than I even. But at the time, I never had an affinity toward Colonel Parker. I thought he was very brusque, and I saw the way he kind of he was like a bull in a china shop. He was not delicate. He was, the way he dealt with people, and he was kind of brusque and I really kind of unkind in a way. I believe in treating everyone with the same dignity, whether you're the janitor, you're a person of service, or you're a king. You should treat everyone equally. And I didn't feel that Colonel Parker did, and that would be the one thing that I would say about him, that he was very dismissive of people of what he would call lower stations, And I wasn't raised like that. I don't believe like that. I think we're all equal. We all deserve respect and kindness and fair treatment. And I thought he was a little mean-spirited, to be honest.
Question back there.
Did Elvis Presley ever give you the Book of Mormon? I heard that he received the Book of Mormon and said to something, and he studied it a lot and stuff. And I heard he gave God books from someone's strength and so on. Did he ever give you one?
No, he never gave me a Book of Mormon, but it is true that he researched every religion, every faith, and he, like I said, appreciated everyone's quest for knowledge and for enlightenment and just to be a better person, So he read the Book of Mormon, he read Paramahansa Yogananda, autobiography of a yogi. He read, all self-realization books and Buddhist books. He was really on a quest to understand life and understand people and spirituality. So, he never did give me that book. No.
More questions? We have a little time.
Want to hear more about those marshmallow lips? Yes. That's a good question. And I've had time to think about that, 41 years. The only regret would be something that I couldn't do anything about anyway. I was so young and naive, and my family, my mom and dad didn't even keep alcohol in the house, so I had no knowledge of drugs or alcohol. And I wish I had known how to help him. I wish I had known something to say, something to do that might have made a difference in his course, in the course that he took in his life. That would be the biggest thing, the biggest regret, that I wasn't better educated and more knowledgeable and had the facility, to help him change the fate that he experienced. As far as being loyal to him and loving him, I said to someone yesterday, I couldn't have been younger or cuter or more loving. I was everything that I could have been to him. And that's where, the onus falls on someone else. When you're everything that you can possibly be to another human being, you give everything that you are, everything that you have, you can do no more than that. So then you can have no regrets. You give everything that you have. And if it's not enough, it's not enough, and that's not on you, it's on them. That there's some kind of vacuous point in them, some kind of dark hole that you can't fill. And it's really not about you, it's about the other person. So in that regard, we all are responsible for our own fates, and you really can't put the responsibility on anyone else. So I think that's important for us to all realize too.
Our time is up. Maybe we can squeeze in one more quick question if there is one. Right down here.
Is it true that he admitted himself in the hospital to get away from everything? No, that's not true. He was admitted to the hospital because he was in trouble, because he had breathing problems, because he was ill and he needed help. He never admitted himself to the hospital. It was just, he went willingly because he knew that he needed to go, but it was not to get away from people. We got away from people all the time. We lived a very sequestered, private life, because if we were at Graceland, Elvis and I would retreat upstairs to the bedroom, and he only came out when he wanted to see other people. And the airplane that we flew in, we would go straight back to the bedroom, and he didn't really socialize with a lot of people unless he wanted to. Even in the suites in Las Vegas, he would come out and play and visit and talk and scout the room, and then, come on, let's go. So we spent a lot of alone time together. He could have all the private time he wanted in his private life, not on stage certainly, and he didn't have to come out and have people gather in the suite, but he really enjoyed getting to know some other people and their lifestyles, and getting to branch out. Just the 13 guys that were around him all the time, he got sick of talking to them all the time. And me probably too.
Okay, so with all the new technology, if you could talk to him for 30 seconds and say, hey honey, it's been 41 years, and guess what? What would you say?
Guess what? I still love you.
Linda Thompson.
Thank you all. We didn't get to your question.